Welcome to David Sisson Models.
Well, I've put up around 30 videos on YouTube over the years, but my most popular one with 327,000 views is the one about the Eagle Transporter from Space 1999. But people want to see better quality, so here is the new remake.
Space 1999 was filmed between 1973 and 1976. Made by Gerry Anderson, it starred Martin Landau and Barbara Bain, plus many other famous film and television actors. However, to many fans, myself included, the real stars of the show were the special effects and model-making technicians working away at Bray Studios. This team, led by Brian Johnson, created some of the best special effects ever seen on television, and in the process also created one of the best fictional spacecraft ever to grace the screen, the Eagle Transporter. This craft was brought to life by a variety of different scale models ranging in size from 5.5 inch to 44 inches, or 1.1 metres for the metric fans. These models were all slightly different from each other, and many fans have their own personal favourite, but mine was easily the first big 44-inch Eagle model. To me, it simply looked the best. As it was one of the first models to be built, this and the smaller 22-inch Eagle were the ones that were filmed the most. It was also the model that was used to heavily promote the series. It was on all the publicity material, it was on all the merchandise, the books, the records, the annuals, the magazines, comics, even bubblegum cards, and it was the poster hanging on my bedroom wall. In the series, it was the model used to film many of the most memorable special effects shots, including the often repeated scenes. It was the Eagle that rose up on the launch pad each week and blasted off in a cloud of dust. It was the Eagle that you saw the pilots in the cockpit windows, and the Eagle on the planet where the actors magically appear to walk out of the ship. And in Year 2, it was the Eagle you see flying over Moonbase Alpha in the opening credits. This brilliant model was used throughout the series, appearing in 45 of the 48 shows. Rather fittingly, it had a starring role in the last ever episode, where for its final scene it flies off into the distance 3 times in a superb multiple exposed shot. But its most memorable scenes took place during those 11 thrilling crash landings that occurred during the course of the series, where this particular model took the lion's share of the action. Thankfully, many of the models from Space 1999 survived their time in the studio and afterwards went on public display before eventually being distributed into private collections around the world. This first big Eagle was given to prop collector Phil Ray in the early 1980s by Gerry Anderson himself. He kept the model for 20 years, often displaying it at events around the country before selling it on to me in 2002. After a bit of restoration, which was needed to remove all of the various paint and detail alterations and fix up the broken joints in the framework that actually hold the entire model together, I have continued that tradition of public displays to share the model with many other Space 1999 fans. Although it is called the 44-inch Eagle, it is in reality just under 43.5 inches long. It is quite heavy at nearly 35 pounds or 15 kilograms, which isn't really surprising when you realise that you need nearly 100 feet or 30 metres of brass tubing to build one of these models. All of this metalwork does make the model very strong, but it is designed to come apart with ease. This allowed the filmmakers to repair the model where necessary and also adapt it for filming needs, such as fitting a damaged shoulder pod or a nose cone. The nose cone is a thin perspex shell moulded in 2 halves, top and bottom, with the raised pieces being cut from a second moulding. The window recesses would have been cut out and made from flat pieces of plastic, so they were not formed in the moulding process. The 2 pilots are simply model kit parts from the Revel Gemini space capsule. The nose cone is fixed to a brass collar that simply plugs into the metal cages that go behind. The 4 shoulder pods are wooden blocks that have been clad in perspex sheeting and then detailed with plasticard panels and model kit parts. Spring-loaded landing legs are separate units that simply plug into the wooden blocks. Being held in place with that circular tube actually means that the legs can rotate, so normally they would be held in place with some double-sided sticky tape, but in the show and in some publicity pictures you might actually see the legs slightly twisted, and in fact in the episode Space Warp the legs are on back to front. The wooden prong allows the shoulder pod to be just plugged into the cagework, while a bit of tape wrapped around it holds it snugly in position. The complex details inside the cageworks are simply a combination of selected model kit parts and various pumps and valves and other industrial fittings from the EMA Model Supplies catalogue. This model was refurbished between Series 1 and Series 2, so all this detail changed at that point. The standard passenger pod basically comprises of an upper hollow plastic shell built from 1/8 inch perspex sheeting. A detachable base plate has a cradle for 2 airbrush propellant canisters, which can pump gas through a solenoid control valve and out through the bottom thruster bells. This solenoid was controlled by electrical current, which was fed down the model's support wires. This base plate is actually quite heavy because it's covered in brass piping, and then there's the aluminium thrusters and the aluminium and brass feet. The left-hand side door has a plasticine-filled hole in the centre, which could be seen throughout most of the series, and is believed to have been the result of a dummy airlock boarding tube being screwed through the door in the episode The Guardian of Piri. The piece above the door appears to be a separately made section. I had thought at first that they'd simply cut the lines in for detail, but the overhang doesn't appear on the original plan, so it could be that this was a design change where they filled in the gap after building the rest of the pod. To begin with, the windows were clear, but you could actually see the canisters inside the pod, so they sprayed the insides black. There is still evidence of several burn marks on the model, including this one which was caused in the Seance Spectre when one of the shoulder pods exploded. Most of the metalwork is done in 1/4 inch brass pipe, with some 5/16 in the upper spine and 3/16 for all the cross members. The rear section includes these impressive looking engine bells, which in the second series were fitted with injector pipes to simulate rocket exhaust gas effects. The gas supply was fed into the model through pipes in the upper spine, that then fed through to a ring that looped around the engines. Small feeder tubes branched off to supply each bell in turn. There were other pipes added that were non-functional simply to balance out the design detail. These 3-inch aluminium engine bells look really nice, but being hand-turned means that the details are all slightly different. I'm pretty sure that the original model makers didn't expect their creation to still be around in the 21st century, but now 47 years old and she still looks pretty good and hopefully has a long life ahead of her, especially as the moon hasn't actually blown out of orbit yet. Well, I hope you enjoyed that film. It's been an honour owning that very special model over the years, but right now I'm actually busy building a brand new replica of it, so I'll have to say goodbye and I'll see you again next time on David Sisson Models.
Bloody hell, it's hot.